Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Cooper with CFIN, and today I'm here with Veronica Hislop of FoodGrads. She's the content creator and host of the FoodGrads podcast. Hi, Veronica.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I love what CFIN's doing, and I'm so happy to be a part of this conversation.
Great. So today we're talking about FoodGrads. So maybe you can start off by explaining a little bit about what FoodGrads is and who it's for.
Absolutely. So FoodGrads is, we like to say, an interactive platform, which is helping to connect students, graduates, employers, and the education sector connect to one another to help link them together and find jobs for everyone. But as well, our broader mission is to help promote the food and beverage industry and really get a bigger awareness and show this is a great place to work. Let's get more people involved in it.
Absolutely. So maybe you can tell me about some of the resources that you offer.
Yeah, sorry, for sure. We actually have two main aspects we can look at this. So we have the resources to help students, but we also have the resources to help education partners as well as employers. So focusing on the student side, we have a lot of different opportunities for students to learn. We have our career guides, which cover all the different jobs that you can find in the sector, from everything from food safety to R&D to auditors. We really dive deep into that. We also have our blog, which covers more of that information, but more for the job tips and such. We have our wonderful podcast hosted by me, which we showcase different stories from those that are in the food and beverage industry, really giving them stories. We also have the job board. We also do webinars for students. So those who are in school, we'll go out there, we'll go to their job fairs, we'll really bring awareness to them, but as well, come into the classes, virtual and in person, and explain the jobs. And then, of course, we have the social media and we have all that really fun stuff. But from the employer side, we also have the opportunity for them to post on our job board. We host job fairs, so helping connect for co-op opportunities, as well as there's a lot, and I think I'm missing something.
There is a lot there.
We're informing, that's our goal. And we also, how could I forget the campus ambassador program that we have? So students can, yeah, so that's one of my favorite things. So students, we can help support their message, try to really promote them, connect them with employers, help them make videos, help them showcase themselves. And that's actually how I got involved with FoodGrads way back ago, 5 years.
Sounds great. So we all know that the food industry is facing a pretty significant labor shortage. How is FoodGrads helping to fill those jobs, basically?
So I guess it really comes back to the awareness, and that's something that this sector has really struggled for. When I can't remember the exact quote or the number, but so many people are unaware that this industry even exists. So one of the ways that we're helping is by reaching out to those who might not necessarily know about the food sector. So as I mentioned before, we have our webinars that we do with students. So we're reaching out to engineering students. So we're addressing, I have an engineering degree, what can I do? Or I have a biology degree. Someone might not necessarily think of going into the food sector for lab. They might think of medical work. So really getting in the ear. And although it's a simple thing, conversations are really the best place.
So what jobs have you seen that are really in demand, and then maybe emerging jobs that are becoming in demand, and then some of the sectors that are needing skilled laborers the most, and skilled workers, I should say, the most?
So when we say the food processing industry, I think one thing to keep in mind is that that's a very broad term. So you have everyone from your food safety professionals to your production workers to your HR, like it's a whole thing overall. But if we're really focusing down on the manufacturing side, actually a lot, unfortunately that the number that's looking at is that they need a lot of laborers. So that's those people that are running the packaging lines, that are who work in the meat processing industries. They're cutting the meat. So 50% of that is 50% of the food processing industry is made up of those workers. So there is a big push for that. But for those that are looking for more skilled or maybe something into that, there's also really a push for those little bit of a higher demand ones. So we have like the skilled trades, the electricians, the maintenance workers, the millwrights, as well as those that are in food safety. So if we're jumping to there, there's a lot of a need for food auditors. So the individuals who come to the processing plants who make sure everything is going okay. There's also the need for the production supervisor staff. So those line line operators, and there's a big gap in many different areas. So
Right.
you really, it takes a village, and there's really jobs for everyone in that area.
Right. So you mentioned looking at opportunities for graduates who haven't necessarily been in a food program, people like engineers, and that's going to be much more important in the near future because so much of the industry is getting into automation and food technology. So what do those sort of graduates need to know about opportunities in the food industry and just what's different in the food industry than, say, other industries they might be looking for jobs in?
Absolutely. From what I've been aware of, I mean, if we can talk about how the food industry first is different than that of the other industries, I mean, first of all, there's the job security. I mean, it's a saying in the industry that you need to eat, so your job is pretty recession proof, unlike the other manufacturing fields that might be more, we think of car manufacturing, or we think of construction, or those types of things. They kind of come and go. So the thing with food is everyone's always going to eat. So there's always going to be that constant need. And I mean, the pandemic has really shown that, like, they didn't close at all. They kept going. So there's definitely that. There's the job security. There's also the opportunities for moving around. I know many individuals who maybe started on the production floor are now in supply chain management. There's people who have moved from food safety to R&D, and now they're plant managers. There's really that, there's a lot of hiring and moving within, and a lot of skills training within. So you kind of, if you have your foot in the door and you really show that you have a keen interest in something, there's a lot of opportunity to move around. I'm trying to think of some other ones. There's also locations. So unlike maybe you think of the mining field, you have to go to Sudbury. There's not that much, but with the integration of the food industry, you can be working downtown, you can be working in rural areas. So there's really good opportunities for you to even move around the country. And then as well, coming back to the other side of the equation, I think because the industry is so flexible, I think it really shows that you can start from anywhere. So you can have that science degree. So I had a chemistry degree, and I went in and got a quality assurance role, but I know people who are in food science. There's a lot of different opportunities. There's been those who have worked in, who have master's degrees, who now work as plant managers. It's just getting your foot in the door. And there's a very keen saying that everyone kind of knows everyone as well in the food industry. So I think it's just showing a keen interest. I think that'll get you far.
Sounds great. So is there anything else you wanted to add right now about FoodGrads?
Well, I want to just talk about many of our listeners might be unfamiliar with the food industry, or maybe that there's some students that are listening. And I think one of the things we didn't touch upon is the idea of automation and, the sector becoming more digital. And I think that people might not necessarily have to be worried about automation replacing their jobs totally, because it's, from my understanding, it's just not what the trend is happening, but it's being able to use those tools. So you're not going to necessarily have a person who's in the plant, like you're not going to have like 20 people who are all automation masters and such. Instead, they're going to be using the tools to assist them. And one of the key things to keep in mind is those skills that are always going to be transferable. The industry is very much about collaboration. And when it comes to food safety, or if it comes to working in the production floor, there's always, one of the things I've been hearing a lot lately is that there needs to be building up those skills to be able to look at solutions. So you're going to have these tools that are going to say, the metal detector is not working, the processing line's not working. Sure, it might be able to tell you that, but what's the next step? You're going to have all this data. You're going to need to be able to actually use that data to your advantage. So thinking of a solutions mindset and being able to collaborate, I think those are two things to keep in mind. So I know that's not FoodGrads, but it's just something I'm always telling students as well. But
and they're absolutely necessary skills, right?
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you can't get away from the transferable skills. Of course, you need those food safety understanding of things, or you need to know how to run a production line, but soft skills do get you far. So
okay.
Sorry, Carolyn, I was just going to say, so yeah, FoodGrads is here. We're here to support the industry. I love being able to work with students, hearing from what they are. I mean, when we approach FoodGrads, we're always trying to think of how can we help the next generation. And I think it's always been beneficial that I started out in FoodGrads when I was a student. So I'm always thinking of resources. So much of it has come from, hey, I didn't have that. I want that, so I'm going to make that for
Right.
them.
And maybe you could tell our audience what you're doing today. I know you're doing your PhD studies, aren't you?
Yes, yes. I wasn't sure. I feel like I'm doing everything. So I'm actually currently a PhD student who's going to TMU, formerly known as Ryerson, and I actually study fat-based food emulsions. So I'm kind of in that science side, trying to understand. I like to tell people I study the texture of margarine.
Okay.
There's a lot more to it, and I know those listening will probably know that.
There's always something fascinating going on in food research. So
For sure.
it's always interesting to hear. Well, it's great talking to you today, Veronica. And hopefully our audience will check out FoodGrads. We'll have more information on our site so that they can get in touch with you and find out how to listen to the podcast as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for having me on the show. I hope that our resources help all those that are listening, and please feel free to reach out if there's something that you need some more information about.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.